Namaskar, this is News Night on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn, and in focus tonight is the Prime Minister's scathing criticism of elements who are out to rent a cause, just create chaos in our country. He urged people not to be drawn into the false propaganda being spread by these elements who are trying to create chaos in our country. Well, also, India continues to help the world with COVID vaccines. Let's begin with the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi appeals to farmers to end their agitation and give agricultural reforms a chance. Speaking in the Rajya Sabha, the Prime Minister says MSP will continue and mandis will be strengthened, assures that any shortcomings in the laws will be addressed. Prime Minister Modi lashes out at those trying to destabilize the country, asks people to reject false propaganda and save the country from foreign destructive ideology, asks countrymen to stay away from these kind of agitators, and states India is the mother of democracy. J&K Reorganization Bill 2021 passed in the Rajya Sabha. Deadlock ends in the Lok Sabha over the farmers' issue. The opposition agrees to smoothly resume debate on President's address in the Lok Sabha after the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh's intervention. Relief and rescue operations on a war footing after Sunday's disaster in Uttarakhand. NDRF, SDRF, Army and ITBP engaged in evacuated stranded people. The death toll reaches 20. 197 people are still missing. Political crisis continues in Myanmar. The police fires water cannons at the protesters in Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw, as tens of thousands of people across the country join a third day of demonstrations against the military government. US President Joe Biden says that he will not lift sanctions on Iran till Iran complies with the nuclear deal. But Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says that he will go back to complying with the terms of the 2015 deal only if the US lifts the sanctions imposed. The world battles COVID-19. Over 10 crore 67 lakh people are infected worldwide, and over 7 crore 84 lakh recoveries have been recorded. R. Ashwin's 6-wicket haul bowls England out in the fourth day, of the Chennai Test. England are all out for 178 runs in the second innings, and India is chasing a stiff target of 420 runs, and we're 39 for 1 at stumps on day 4. Let's begin with our top story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was scathing in his criticism of those looking for an opportunity to malign India's image by renting a cause to create unrest in the country. The Prime Minister minced no words in calling a spade in his reply to the motion of thanks to the President's address in Parliament. The Prime Minister said, "Don't allow these vested interests trying to create chaos in our country by spreading false propaganda against India to succeed." Here's our report.
ये नया एफडीआई है, फॉरेन डिस्ट्रक्टिव आइडियोलॉजी.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi calling out those maligning India's image on social media in the Rajya Sabha. He minced no words while responding to the debate on the President's address, urging people to beware of such malicious elements.
देश प्रगति कर रहा है, हम एफडीआई की बात कर रहे हैं, फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट. ये नए एफडीआई से देश को बचाना है. एफडीआई चाहिए, फॉरेन डायरेक्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट.
His remarks come a day after he called out those muddying India's image by targeting tea and yoga, icons associated globally with the country. Addressing gatherings in Assam, PM Modi alleged that there was a plot to defame India's tea industry and warned that no one involved will be spared. In Haldia and West Bengal, the Prime Minister also hit out at conspiracies being hatched overseas to target India's soft power, such as tea and yoga. In the Rajya Sabha on Monday, The Prime Minister exposed those trying to create instability and unrest in the country. Quoting the example of Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and the Northeast, the PM urged people not to be misled by malicious elements.
जो भारत अस्थिर रहे, अशांत रहे, इसे लगातार कोशिशें कर रहे हैं। हमें इन लोगों को जानना होगा। हम ये न भूलें कि पंजाब के साथ क्या हुआ। जब बंटवारा हुआ, सबसे ज्यादा भुगतना पड़ा पंजाब को। जब 84 के दंगे हुए, सबसे ज्यादा आंसू बहे पंजाब के। सबसे ज्यादा दर्दनाक घटनाओं का शिकार होना पड़ा पंजाब को। जो जम्मू कश्मीर में हुआ, निर्दोषों को मौत के घाट उतार दिया गया। जो नॉर्थ ईस्ट में होता रहा, आए दिन बम बंदूक और गोलियों का कारोबार चलता रहा। ये सारी चीजों ने देश को किसी न किसी रूप में बहुत नुकसान किया है। कुछ लोग हमारे खास करके पंजाब के, खास करके सिख भाइयों के दिमाग में गलत चीजें भरने में लगे हैं। ये देश हर सिख के लिए गर्व करता है। देश के लिए क्या कुछ नहीं किया इन्होंने। उनका जितना हम आदर करें उतना कम है।
PM Modi also called out Andolan Jivis or Rent a Cause activists.
वकीलों का आंदोलन है, वो ना वहां नजर आएंगे। स्टूडेंट का आंदोलन है, वो वहां नजर आएंगे। मजदूर का आंदोलन है, वो वहां नजर आएंगे। कभी पर्दे के पीछे, कभी पर्दे के आगे। एक पूरी टोली है जो आंदोलन जीवी है। वो आंदोलन के बिना जी नहीं सकते हैं और आंदोलन से जीने के लिए रास्ते खोजते रहते हैं। हमें ऐसे लोगों को पहचानना होगा कि वो जो सब जगह पे पहुंच करके और बड़ा आइडियोलॉजिकल स्टैंड दे देते हैं, गुमराह कर देते हैं, नए नए तरीके बता देते हैं। देश आंदोलन जीवी लोगों से बचे, इसके लिए हम सबको ऐसे लोगों को पहचानने की बहुत आवश्यकता है।
Delhi police is probing a Google toolkit first shared and then deleted by activist Greta Thunberg on Twitter. Social media is also being monitored carefully.
अगर आप 26 जनवरी और उसके आसपास के इवेंट्स को देखें तो आपको ये मालूम होगा कि ये बिल्कुल कॉपी कैट, बिल्कुल एग्जीक्यूशन था। जिस तरह का प्लान इस डॉक्यूमेंट में है, उसी तरह की एक्टिविटीज़ ग्राउंड पे भी दिखाई देती हैं। तो इसका संज्ञान लेते हुए दिल्ली पुलिस ने जो ऑथर्स हैं टूल किट के, उनके खिलाफ एक केस दर्ज किया है। धारा 124A, 153A, 153 और 120B IPC में।
Prime Minister Modi's message in the Rajya Sabha was clear. Don't allow vested interests trying to create chaos in the country by spreading false propaganda against India to succeed. Beware of their intentions and stand united against their destructive ideology.
चर्चा करते रहिए, लगातार चर्चा करते रहिए, सदन को जीवंत बनाते रखिए। मोदी है, मौका लीजिए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
With Rajesh Raj and Neeraj, Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, so this brings us to In Focus tonight, and this is it. Standing up to false propaganda is In Focus tonight, and we have with us, joining us, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat and the chairman of Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries. Professor Harsh Pant is Distinguished Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, so the Prime Minister's address really, hitting home a few points which have been discussed for some time now. And what do you think, about this, about the international, the attempt to try and internationalize this issue by those who are, trying to use or piggybacking on the farmers' protests?
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes. I think the Prime Minister is obviously spot on. But there are two kinds of things, and I think it's important to distinguish between the two. One, obviously, you do have people who I think stand to gain by defaming India or making India out not to be a democracy. There is a political agenda at play here. There's no question about that. But I am more concerned, if you like, by international activists and others speaking without sufficient knowledge about the subject.
Yes.
For example, Greta Thunberg, for example, lashing out and everything that these laws are going to do is in favor of sustainable agriculture. And I thought she was a great advocate of environment and sustainable development.
Yes.
And for her to be as ill-informed as she turned out to be, that bothers me even more. The fact that there is a political agenda conspiracy, you can't really deny that. What I think we can do is bring facts to the fore and to bring logic to the fore so that there can be an informed debate on the issue. So for me, that is, I think, the challenge for not just the government, but also for all well-meaning Indians. I think we all have to contribute a bit to this exercise, if you like, of bringing facts, bringing logic, so that there can be an informed debate.
Indeed. So the debate has to be informed, Professor Harsh Pant, and definitely a lot of the voices that are beginning to speak up internationally are definitely ill-informed, or just see the protests and probably just latch on to opinion that is in one particular direction. What do you think? I mean, has this issue not been conveyed properly? Has the story not been told properly? What do you think? I mean, the international media is misunderstanding it.
No, I think there is part misunderstanding, but part I think it's deliberate. And I think one has to therefore recognize that, this is a very interesting time in global politics, in India's rise. If you look around the world, you look at economies that are falling left, right, and center. The developed world is unable to hold the center. You see in India managing COVID-19 very well. India is now a global health provider, emerging as a global health provider. So in that context, this idea that somehow India is not democratic, somehow India's institutions are collapsing, this is a narrative that could have worked, say, in 1950s and 60s and 70s. But today, when India is so much more confident of itself and its role in global politics, and when technology actually allows all sides to make their points, you have a group of people, a group of organizations who have a certain view of India and who want to perpetuate that view. So it is uninformed, as Ambassador Kumar was pointing out, that you have people in America sitting, celebrity activists who have no knowledge of India, of the Indian context, and who perhaps can actually advise their own government that if they want to make Indian agriculture better, Indian farmer situation better, they just have to open their markets for Indian farmers. Instead, commenting and mobilizing support for causes which they know nothing about. I think the narrative has to be, this is a battle also of narratives. And I think the MEA's statement was very important because, some people may criticize it. But the idea that Indian government, India's Ministry of External Affairs, needs to set it in perspective, and the context had to be stabilized. And I think that is what India has been trying to do for a while. And I hope more such endeavors are made. And again, facts, logic, and with a degree of sanity, this conversation can move forward. After all, India's democracy is working. Protests are a part of Indian democracy, and ultimately all policies are made like this. So clearly we can make our points better, but I think we have started that. And clearly there is always going to be a group of people, organizations, which will be willing to perpetuate a certain kind of a narrative about India. And I think at the end of the day, nothing can be done about it.
So Ambassador Mohan Kumar, both of you have mentioned facts and logic. So, this also happens at a time when India has made this pledge to become self-reliant or to be self-reliant. And this is the path that we are taking over the next 10 years to strengthen ourselves, self-reliance. And, both of you did also mention India's definite emergence out of COVID. Very strongly, India has come out of COVID. And this is showing some direction to the world. Trying to dent India's image at a time like this, would you say, state actors are involved to some extent?
Well, without knowing too much of the evidence, it's hard to say. But state connivance is certainly there. I mean, that's what I would say. And in one of the the kind of, shall we say, communication put up by a group of people, which I was happy to be part of, you can certainly accuse some of these countries of unbelievable double standards. For example, the developed countries, US, EU, or you've got the Keynes group of countries which take agricultural exports very seriously, they have a completely different view of India's position in the WTO, for example. They have been telling India for a long time in the WTO that precisely these are the kind of farm laws that India should be doing.
Yes,
the market should be allowed to play a bigger role and so on. But their own foreign officers and other people, other celebrities in their countries, members of parliament, have been saying, no, you must try to have a dialogue with these, with the farmers' protests and so on, which in any case we are having.
Indeed.
So some of these comments, I think, smack of double standards at worst and gratuitous at worst, at best, really. So
Indeed.
there is a problem there. But I agree with Professor Pant. I think there could be also the fact that India is rising, that India is trying to be self-reliant. But I'm not too worried about that because, as Professor Pant said, it's not the 60s and 70s. For me, the fact that people are not informed about this issue sufficiently and go on to make gratuitous comments, that is what bothers me. And I think those should be refuted strongly. I mean, the simple fact of the matter, for example, sustainable agriculture can come into conflict with farmers' welfare and food security. These are three big issues that every country faces, and it is the sovereign right of every government to strike a balance between farmers' welfare, which is terribly important, food security, and sustainable agriculture. But these issues have to be understood. What is the water table in Punjab? Is there a report which says, for example, that Punjab will become a desert in 10 years' time? Is that correct? Is it not correct? Can you allow such an unsustainable kind of agriculture to continue?
Right.
Those are issues, I'm afraid, which have not been brought to the fore sufficiently.
Indeed.
And
so those issues are also related, obviously, but you did mention the facts and a lot of logic here that you did talk about sustainable agriculture, food security, the welfare of farmers, and the water table in Punjab. Professor Pant, the government of India has been open to dialogue with the farmers, and it has been having dialogue with the farmers. Is this a point that has not gone across? Because, you know, the impression is that, you know, the government of India has taken a very hard stand, but it's actually the farmers that have taken a hard stand, and the government of India has taken a stand which is the middle path.
Yes, it's incredible. You know, here is a government with a substantive majority in parliament, bringing a law through the very processes of parliament that the processes of parliament allow. And there was a big debate on the farm laws. There is the entire, if you look at the spectrum of agricultural experts, you would find that most of them agreeing with the logic of these laws. So it's very interesting. Again, as the Prime Minister today pointed out, we have had governments who have in ways implemented parts of these laws in their own states. And we have had governments of the past saying that they intend to bring such laws. So now, you know, for an ordinary Indian, when you look at this conversation, it looks very lopsided because you have farmers actually, making a case that unless their demands are met, nothing can happen. And those demands seem to be increasingly hostile to mediation, hostile to compromise.
Right. Yes.
So that is a bigger issue, I think, in the political process. That how have we ended up here? Government from the very beginning has been holding these negotiations. So for those who are commenting on this, they should also recognize that the Indian democracy is working in ways which are quite exceptional. Here you have a group of farmers from a few states. This is not also a pan-India issue, which also the Prime Minister pointed out today. This is also not a pan-farmer issue. So clearly, I think again, the facts and the logic somehow get subsumed in the rancor of this debate, which is very unfortunate and does no justice to the farmers. The leaders of the farmers are saying that this is all for farmers. If this is all for farmers, then let's have a reasoned debate. Let's not, put the gun to the head of the government and say, my way or highway. That can't be the process in a democracy. So certainly, I think a lot of this conversation has to be mediated and has to be, brought forth that this is happening in a certain political context.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us, Ambassador Mohan Kumar and Professor Harsh Pant, and enlightening us on the very functioning of our democracy and how vibrant it is at a time like this. Let's move on then to our next story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi sought to clear all doubts about the agricultural reform laws passed in the previous session of Parliament. Many members also had expressed their concerns about these ongoing agitations by the farmers. And detailing the steps taken by the government for farmers' welfare, the Prime Minister appealed to the farmers who opposed the agrarian reforms, only the section that opposed the agrarian reforms, to end their agitation and to give the laws a chance, because several other farmers are in favor of the laws.
During discussion on the motion of thanks on the President's address in the Rajya Sabha, several members put forth their views on agri reforms and expressed concern over farmer protests. When PM Narendra Modi replied to the discussion on Monday, then he informed the members about the steps taken by the government. The PM also appealed to the protesting farmers to give agri reforms a chance.
आंदोलन से जुड़े लोगों से प्रार्थना करते हैं कि आप आंदोलन करना आपका हक है, लेकिन इस प्रकार से बुजुर्ग लोग वहां बैठे ये ठीक नहीं है, आप उनको सबको ले जाइए, आप आंदोलन को खत्म कीजिए, आगे बढ़ने के लिए मिल बैठ करके चर्चा करेंगे, रास्ता खुले है। ये सब हमने कहा है, मैं आज भी इस सदन से माध्यम से भी निमंत्रण देता हूं। हमारी खेती को खुशहाल बनाने के लिए फैसले लेने का ये समय है, इस समय को हमने गंवा नहीं देना चाहिए, हमें आगे बढ़ना चाहिए, देश को पीछे नहीं ले जाना चाहिए।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said Union Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar is holding consultations with the farmers and there is no roadblock. He also said, till now there has been no deadlock in the talks between Agriculture Minister and the farmers. PM Modi said, whenever something new comes up in the country, there will be some opposition. He said, even during the Green Revolution, there was opposition. PM Modi also urged agitating farmers that these agricultural reforms should be given a chance and the government is ready to accept any suggestions.
पक्ष हो, विपक्ष हो, आंदोलनरत साथी हो, इन सुधारों को हमने मौका देना चाहिए और एक बार देखना चाहिए कि इस परिवर्तन से हमें लाभ होता है कि नहीं होता है। कोई कमी हो तो उसको ठीक करेंगे और कहीं ढिलाई है तो उसको कसेंगे।
PM Modi attacked the opposition stand on the farmers' issue. Giving example of a speech of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, PM Modi said members of the previous government were earlier supporting the reforms, but now there is a clear U-turn. Speaking in the upper house, the Prime Minister said MSP will remain and mandis will be modernized.
मैं विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मंडियां अधिक आधुनिक बने, अधिक प्रतिस्पर्धी होगी। इस बार बजट में भी उसके लिए हमने प्रावधान किया है। इतना ही नहीं, एमएसपी है, एमएसपी था, एमएसपी रहेगा। इस सदन की पवित्रता समझे हम।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi explained how his government is constantly taking steps for the welfare of farmers. He also said farmers have also been benefited from Kisan Credit Card, Soil Health Card and Kisan Samman Nidhi, and appealed to the opposition parties to cooperate with the government for the welfare of the farmers.
अच्छा करने के लिए अच्छे सुझावों के साथ, अच्छे सुधारों की तैयारी के साथ हम सबको आगे बढ़ना चाहिए। मैं आप सबको निमंत्रण देता हूं, आइए हम देश को आगे ले जाने के लिए, कृषि क्षेत्र की समस्याओं का समाधान करने के लिए आंदोलनकारियों को समझाते हुए हमने देश को आगे ले जाना होगा। हो सकता है कि शायद आज नहीं तो कल जो भी यहाँ होगा, किसी न किसी को ये काम करना ही पड़ेगा। आज मैंने किया है, गालियां मेरे खाते में जाने दो, लेकिन इस अच्छा करने में आप जुड़ जाओ। बुरा हो मेरे खाते में, अच्छा हो आपके खाते में, आओ मिलकर के चले।
The Prime Minister told the House that after some time there are improvements made in every law and accepting good suggestions has been the tradition of democracy. He said the problems of agriculture should be resolved and there is a need to work for this. With inputs from Parliament team, Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, India has become a global supplier of vaccines, besides supplying medicines to over 150 countries across the world during the difficult times of a global pandemic. Prime Minister referred to India's global vaccine diplomacy and made a renewed call for self-reliance. Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India. This was the focus of the President's address to the joint sitting of Parliament at the beginning of the budget session. The Prime Minister was replying to the motion of thanks to the President's address. Here's a report.
अवसर तेरे लिए खड़ा है, फिर भी तू चुपचाप पड़ा है। तेरा कर्म क्षेत्र बड़ा है, पल पल है अनमोल। अरे भारत उठ, आंखें खोल।
Responding to the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address in the Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister Narendra Modi recalled the words of poet Maithili Sharan Gupta to convey the message that the whole world is looking towards India with great expectations. Referring to the COVID pandemic, the PM said, government policy not only saved Indian lives, but helped save lives across the world.
दुनिया इस बात का गर्व कर रही है कि इस वाकई भारत ने दुनिया के मानव जात की रक्षा करने में बहुत बड़ी अहम भूमिका निभाई। ये लड़ाई जीतने का यश किसी सरकार को नहीं जाता है, न किसी व्यक्ति को जाता है, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान को तो जाता है।
The Prime Minister referred to the fact that India, being considered a third world country, has now facilitated the global supply of COVID vaccines in the interests of humanity. The PM mentioned that India has delivered medicines to 150 countries and praised the states for the collective fight against COVID-19.
कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म को ताकत देने का काम, इस कोरोना के संकट को अवसर में पलटने का काम हमारे सभी ने किया है, इसलिए सब कोई अभिनंदन के अधिकारी हैं।
President's address at the start of this session was the first in this decade and comes at a crucial time in history when the world has been pulled back by the impact of COVID-19. The President's address showed the path of a self-reliant India, the path India embarked on this decade. Prime Minister targeted opposition parties for boycotting the address and thanked those who participated in the debate on the motion of thanks.
अच्छा होता कि राष्ट्रपति जी का भाषण सुनने के लिए भी सब होते तो लोकतंत्र की गरिमा और बढ़ जाती और हम सबको कभी गिला शिकवा न रहता कि हमने राष्ट्रपति जी का भाषण सुना नहीं था। लेकिन राष्ट्रपति जी के भाषण की ताकत इतनी थी कि न सुनने के बावजूद भी बहुत कुछ बोल पाए।
The PM's speech had references to COVID as well as the challenges on the border. He put forward the views of the government and expressed the government's commitment to security forces.
कोरोना के चुनौतीपूर्ण दौर में सीमा पर भी चुनौती देने की कोशिश हुई। LAC पर जो स्थिति बनी है उस पर भारत का रुख बहुत स्पष्ट है। बॉर्डर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और बॉर्डर सिक्योरिटी को लेकर हमारी प्रतिबद्धता में किसी प्रकार की ढील आने का सवाल ही नहीं होता है।
The Prime Minister's speech continued the call for self-reliance that he had made in the face of the COVID pandemic. The PM hailed the rural economy for its foundational role in building self-reliance for 130 crore countrymen. Prime Minister Modi summed up self-reliance with these words.
अवसर तेरे लिए खड़ा है, तू आत्मविश्वास से भरा पड़ा है, हर बाधा, हर बंदिश को तोड़। अरे भारत आत्मनिर्भरता के पथ पर दौड़, आत्मनिर्भरता के पथ पर दौड़।
With inputs from Vishal Baristo, Newsnight Desk, DD India.
The Prime Minister addressed the criticism of Indian democracy and said that Indian democracy is not a Western institution but a human institution, and it is imperative to alert the countrymen about the all-round attack on Indian nationalism. Quoting Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, the Prime Minister asserted Indian nationalism is neither narrow nor selfish or aggressive. It is based on the notion of Satyam Shivam Sundaram. And India is not merely the world's largest democracy, India is the mother of democracy. And this is our ethos. Our nation's temperament is democratic, said the Prime Minister.
लोकतंत्र पर जो लोग शक उठाते हैं, भारत की मूलभूत शक्ति पर जो शक उठाते हैं, उनको तो मैं विशेष आग्रह से कहूंगा कि इसको समझने का प्रयास करें। हमारा लोकतंत्र किसी भी मायने में वेस्टर्न इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं है, ये एक ह्यूमन इंस्टीट्यूशन है। भारत का राष्ट्रवाद ना तो संकीर्ण है, न स्वार्थी है और ना ही आक्रामक है। ये सत्यम शिवम सुंदरम के मूल्यों से प्रेरित है। भारत ये मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी है, ये लोकतंत्र की जननी है।
And taking part in the discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address in the Lok Sabha, the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh said that our democracy is lively and healthy, and it is our responsibility to keep dignity of every institution. He appealed to everyone to hold discussions on the presidential address and not to let traditions break down.
मैं हाथ जोड़कर सबसे निवेदन करना चाहता हूं, बहुत ही विनम्रतापूर्वक और तहे दिल से, इस ट्रेडिशन को हम किसी भी सूरत में टूटने न दें। अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं ये अपील करना चाहता हूं, न टूटने दें। हमको जो बोलना है, जैसा भी बोलना है, हम चर्चा के दौरान अपनी बात को उसमें रखें। इस पर किसी को कोई आपत्ति नहीं हो। ये आपके ऊपर यह निर्भर करता है अध्यक्ष महोदय कि आप किसको कितना समय देते हैं, ये आपका प्रेरोगेटिव है। लेकिन मैं चाहूंगा कि जितना लोग समय चाहते हैं समय दें, लोग बोलें, अपनी बात को खुलकर इस सदन के सामने रखें। एग्रीकल्चर बिल पर बोलना चाहते हैं, एग्रीकल्चर बिल पर बोलते हैं, इसमें कोई आपत्ति नहीं। लेकिन जो हमारी एक स्वस्थ परंपरा है उसको कायम रखें हम सभी लोग मिलकर, यह मैं अनुरोध करना चाहता हूं।
Well, efforts are on still to rescue those who are trapped in the debris from the falling glacier that devastated Chamoli on Sunday. Teams from the NDRF, SDRF, Army, they are all working round the clock to trace those who are still missing or are not accounted for. Take a look at this report.
In Uttarakhand, the relief and rescue operations are continuing in full swing after the glacier burst which led to heavy flooding in Dhauli Ganga and Alaknanda rivers. A joint team of NDRF, SDRF and Army is working on a war footing to save the entrapped lives in the disaster. The State Disaster Response Force removed the debris and slush at the tunnel near Tapovan Dam in Chamoli district and tried to safely rescue those who are stuck in the tunnel. But the team, equipped with special camera and sniffer dogs, couldn't move ahead over 100 meters. It was forced to backtrack. However, a small tunnel has been completely cleared.
जो बड़ी टनल है उसको खोलने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है और वो बहुत लंबी टनल है, 150 मीटर तक गए क्रॉल करके, उसके आगे जाना असंभव था। और वो इतनी बड़ी टनल है तो उसका पूरा मलबा बाहर निकाला जा रहा है, वो मशीनों के साथ निकाला जा रहा है। उसमें अभी आर्मी की टीमें लगी हुई हैं।
One column of army was engaged in rescue work the whole night. Field hospitals have been established to provide necessary medical assistance to the victims of this disaster. Doctors are treating patients and helping victims to overcome the stress of this trauma. 12 people rescued by ITBP on Sunday are being treated at Joshimath Hospital of ITBP. These disaster victims shared their experience.
ITBP की टीम ने हमको 2 या 3-4 घंटे में बाहर निकाल दिया और हमको अपने साथ रेस्क्यू करके और ITBP हॉस्पिटल में भर्ती किया हुआ है।
तो इधर टनल में काम करने के टाइम में पानी आ गया, अब टनल में फंस गया। इसी के टाइम में ITBP रेस्क्यू टीम आके हमारे को बचा दिया।
हमारी इलाज हो रही है ठीक ठाक और सब ठीक है।
ITBP जोशीमठ ने रेस्क्यू करके हमें बचाया है।
A number of bridges collapsed and washed away by the flood. As a result, the road access to several villages have been cut off. Food packets are being distributed in these villages through helicopters. For relief work, control rooms have been operationalized. The diving team of Indian Navy is also playing a key role in the rescue operation.
हमारा एक 90 मीटर स्पान का यहाँ पर पुल था, आप देख रहे हो सामने, ये पुल वॉश आउट हो गया, यहाँ इसका कोई नामो निशान नहीं है। जैसे ये आपदा हुई है तुरंत BRO एक्शन में आ गया। आप देख रहे होंगे दोनों किनारों पे बहुत बड़ी बड़ी मशीनें लगी हुई है और हम दिन रात कोशिश करके इसको यातायात को सुचारू करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
Meanwhile, a delegation from Uttarakhand called on PM Modi over the issue. Union Home Minister Amit Shah and BJP President JP Nadda were also present at this meeting. The delegation briefed the Prime Minister about the disaster and PM assured the delegation of all possible help from the centre.
प्रधानमंत्री जी को पूरी आपदा के बारे में समस्त जानकारियां पहले से ही हैं और हम लोगों ने उनका आभार भी किया कि जिस तरह से उन्होंने आपदा के आते ही आसाम में जब वो थे उन्होंने पूरी समीक्षा की तमाम अधिकारियों से, उत्तराखंड के मुख्यमंत्री त्रिवेंद्र सिंह रावत जी से भी बातचीत की।
Union Minister R.K. Singh reached Joshimath and took stock of rescue and relief operations. He said at this time, administration's priority is rescuing those people who are stuck in the tunnel.
जितने रिवर वैलीज के जो ग्लेशियर्स हैं उसको मॉनिटर करने की हम व्यवस्था करेंगे, या तो हम रिमोट मॉनिटरिंग करें उसमें इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स लगा करके, या नहीं तो उसके आसपास पोस्ट रखें। ये आवश्यक है, सिर्फ हमारे प्रोजेक्ट से लेकर, ये आवश्यक है पूरे जनमानस के लिए।
Chief Minister Trivendra Singh Rawat also reached Chamoli and reviewed rescue and relief operations. He gave necessary directions to officials involved in rescue and relief works.
NDRF, आर्मी और SDRF तीनों का संयुक्त प्रयास चल रहा है। बचाने का पूरा प्रयास हो रहा है, अपनी जान हथेली पे रख कर, और जो हमारे जवान हैं वो काम कर रहे हैं। बहुत जोखिम भरा काम है, लेकिन वो पूरी साहस के साथ कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो अंदर जो लोग हैं उनको सुरक्षित बाहर निकाला जाए।
This glacier burst made alive the deadly memories of 2013 disaster into people's mind. However, prompt action by the concerned agencies and exemplary collaboration between state and central government minimized the loss of life and property in this disaster. With Urmilesh, Chandrasekhar and Shailendra Mishra, Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, to put this into context, we have with us Dr. S.N. Pradhan, who's the Director General of NDRF. We also have Colonel Pradeep Behera, who's the Deputy Commandant of the Independent Mountain Brigade, and also Air Commodore Manu Chaudhary. So, thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Pradhan, how would you assess the current situation? How much progress have we made? How close are we to finding, some of the missing people?
Well, yes, the operation we did find about 14.
This is for Dr. Pradhan.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Pradhan.
The situation is like this. The focus of the operations now is on the tunnel, the main tunnel, where probably 35 to 40 people are supposed to be trapped. The main problem there is that there is a lot of siltation and sludge, so that had to be cleared, and the combined team of Army, the ITBP and NDRF, SDRF, everybody is on the job, and they're trying their best. But it's a long haul because the loose earth and the sludge is in a huge quantity, and the tunnel is 180 meters long in one axis, and then after that there will have to be another axis that has to be covered. So it is taking a lot of time in spite of the use of machinery. So it probably will take the better part of the night, but then the teams will be there and operating through the night.
Air Commodore Manu Chaudhary, put into context, the efforts, the air efforts that are on in this process of rescue and relief.
Yeah, we came to know about this natural tragedy like yesterday, and we activated straight away, like Indian Air Force always does. It is with its countrymen, and the moment we came to know about this crisis, we deployed our helicopters at Dehradun, and 120 groups of NDRF and their heavy equipment along with naval divers were flown in by C-130 helicopters, C-130 aircraft and 2 AN-32 yesterday, last evening. And today they were flown into Joshimath area by our helicopters, 3 Mi-17 B-5 and a heavy lift helicopter Chinook was also deployed, in which in one shuttle the helicopter had taken 40 passengers of NDRF along with essential relief materials and the equipment required for relief at Chamoli district. And this operation is continuing, and we have our helicopters standby at Dehradun. Also, we have got 2 helicopters based at Gauchar runway along with Air Force detachment. Also, we have got a detachment established at Joshimath helipad. Should there be a requirement of flying in more relief material, the aircrafts are ready, and at short notice, helicopter will be deployed.
Colonel Pradeep Behera, under these kind of circumstances and the terrain is so difficult, could you put into context the kind of or to help us understand how difficult this terrain is and the rescue efforts that are on?
Okay, presently we are standing in front of the tunnel pier and the Dhaulaganga river flowing to the right. The most difficult challenge what we faced initially is the chaos. So we didn't know where we are actually trying to locate people. There's so many people have just flushed away. They've just gone with the flash flood. So first important was to locate where is the individual stuck. So now we are homed on to two tunnels. Yesterday one tunnel with the help of ITBP, NDRF, NDRF and Army, we could recover about 14 individuals. And today we are homed on to a major tunnel here right behind me, in which there are approximately 35 to 50 people are expected to be stuck inside. The difficulty what we are facing is that the entire tunnel, what you see behind me, is full of slush. So we need to first excavate the entire slush out. And we have progressed approximately about 70 to 80 meters as of now since yesterday night. And we are hopeful that by tomorrow morning, we should be able to achieve more distance. And there's a huge task ahead. So probably by tomorrow, by the daytime, we'll be able to establish some contact to the individuals who are trapped inside.
But Colonel Behera, how difficult is it to work in the night at a time like this? Because the time is of the essence.
Absolutely, sir. There are two difficulties what we are facing now. Though there are not major difficulties. First is the temperature. Temperature as we speak, it is around 0 and -1. And second is the river which is flowing beside us, which very suddenly it gets into the space. So there's a flash flood warning system. We've established 10 kilometers up the stream where we have an alert system. My detachment is there, which alerts us when there is a rise in the water level. So there are two major difficulties what we face in the night. While in the daytime, it is quite okay.
Air Commodore Manu Chaudhary, with regard to the rotary wings, do they in some way affect the surroundings? Because if there are falling glaciers and things like that, could they be affected by the force of the wind that is generated by the rotary wings?
In hills, the winds are very strong, and we have to plan our sorties and profile in such a way that the winds which does not affect our operations adversely. So in the planning stage, we plan our operation safely so that winds don't affect us, and we are trained in such a way that we carry out our operations safely and successfully in spite of the wind pattern and the challenges with mountain flying and hill flying offers.
Indeed. Actually, my question was more about, you all carry out your operations as successfully as possible, and obviously during the daytime. But, could the wind that is generated from the wings of your aircraft, could they have an impact on the ice?
No, because we do not land in the unprepared or places which have not been rectified. As a operation, the helicopters always land at a place where established helipad is there, and their safety measures and everything is much clear, and there are no chances of that because of helicopter downwash, the snow avalanche or glacier gets affected. It is only at established helipads which have been proven, and the strength is ascertained, then only the helicopter lands there. And because of helicopter downwash, there is nothing that can cause glacier to sort of break, or because the helicopter only lands after it has been ascertained and it has been proven that the place is fit for accommodating helicopter landing or the downwash.
Right.
So by helicopter downwash, things cannot be it cannot deteriorate.
Indeed. Dr. S.N. Pradhan, with regard to an assessment of the area itself, if glaciers are beginning to fall at this time of the year, I mean, are we sort of concerned that, some things like this could happen as the weather changes to become more warm? It's already, close to spring, and are we going to see this? Is there a fear that this can happen again?
Well, in the upper reaches of Himalayas, these things have been suspected, or they have happened. They have happened in J&K area. They have happened in Sikkim. They have happened in Arunachal Pradesh. This had not happened in the recent past in Uttarakhand. But yes, glacier systems, because of climate change all over the world and because of temperature differentials all over the world, there is this danger of ice melting at the higher reaches, and then the outflow resultant coming down in the lower reaches and probably causing some havoc. So this is something that cannot be ruled out because of the overall issue of climate change all over the world, not only in India. It is good that the scientists of DRDO, CSIR, and other SASE are actually doing the surveillance and survey of this area as we speak. Throughout the day today, the scientists were there. The Union Minister, Mr. R.K. Singh, was also there, and the CWC teams were also working there. So, all in all, the government of India is certainly concerned about this phenomenon and has a larger view of the whole situation, so that such situations may be avoided in the future, and the needful may be done about it, because climate change is something that we cannot wish away.
True. Thanks very much, Dr. S.N. Pradhan, Colonel Pradeep Behera, and Air Commodore Manu Chaudhary. Thanks very much for your inputs. Let's move on to our next story then. The US President Joe Biden says that he will not lift economic sanctions against Iran until it complies with the terms agreed under a 2015 nuclear deal. His comments came while speaking to CBS News. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei yesterday said that Tehran's definitive policy will return to compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal only if Washington lifts sanctions on the Islamic Republic. The deal between Iran and 6 major powers limited Iran's uranium enrichment activity to make it harder for Tehran to develop nuclear arms in return for the easing of US and other sanctions. Former US President Donald Trump had abandoned this deal in 2018, denouncing it as one-sided in Iran's favor, and reimposed sanctions that have crippled Iran's economy. The former U.S. President Donald Trump is due to face an impeachment trial in the U.S. Senate from Tuesday. The charge is that he should be held accountable for the violence that took place in the U.S. Capitol and that siege there. And, well, the key argument is whether it's constitutional to proceed in an impeachment against someone who is not in office.
The historic second impeachment of Donald Trump at the US Senate is scheduled to begin on Tuesday. Attorneys on both sides are pointing to the US Constitution for justification of what will be the first impeachment against a president who is no longer in office. Democrats in the House of Representatives want to hold the former Trump accountable for violent US Capitol siege, while Republicans want it to get over as fast as possible. Democrats accuse the former president of inciting insurrection when he urged supporters to fight his election defeat before they stormed the Capitol on 6th of January, fought with the police, and sent lawmakers scrambling for safety. 5 people, including a Capitol Police officer, died in the incident.
I think the strongest arguments are against the Senate having jurisdiction over a president whose term has been ended by an election.
Trump's attorney also rejected the impeachment charge and asserted that the former US president's claims of his 3rd November election defeat as a result of widespread fraud is protected by the First Amendment to the US Constitution.
One of the reasons I'm not participating in this trial is I think this was a fair election. I don't think it was stolen. I don't think it was fraudulent. And I would not participate in a defense that made any of those arguments. I also think the president's speech was god-awful. I think it was wrong, but it was constitutionally protected. The Constitution protects very, very bad speeches.
National Security Attorney Bradley Moss said position would make lame duck presidents immune to impeachment. He also highlighted that the impeachment started when Trump was president and was presented to the then House Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, a fellow Republican who did not take the matter to trial until Trump's term ended.
But in theory, if you were to follow that argument from the Trump lawyers, he could have committed any range of impeachable offenses and then resigned and have been immune from an impeachment inquiry. He could have hightailed it off to another country and been, outside the jurisdiction of the criminal law.
Moss also acknowledged that Trump is unlikely to be found guilty, but still says the impeachment is important.
There's no reason to believe that he's going to actually be convicted. But it does require to hold him politically accountable in the public eye, as opposed to necessarily the remedy of impeachment and conviction, to outline exactly what happened for historical record. This needs to be documented. Future generations need to learn about it and study it to understand what occurred.
A large number of constitutional law experts assert that it is lawful to hold an impeachment trial after a president leaves office. They believe that presidents who commit misconduct late in their terms should not be immune from the very process the US Constitution created to hold them accountable. Bureau Report, DD India.
Protests are swelling and spreading in different regions of Myanmar. This is against the 1st of February coup orchestrated by the military junta against Aung San Suu Kyi's democratically elected government. The military rulers blinked somewhat on Sunday, lifting an internet ban, but remain unwilling to loosen their grip on power, despite people at home and different governments abroad also, including India, urging them to restore democracy in that country. The Haitian President Jovenel Moïse announced on Sunday that the police had arrested more than 20 people accused of trying to kill him and overthrow his government. Individuals arrested include the Supreme Court judge and a senior police official. Police in the capital fired tear gas at protesters who are demanding Moïse's leave. He should leave power and respect the Constitution. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pleaded not guilty on Monday to corruption charges at the resumption of his trial, some 6 weeks before Israeli voters again passed judgment on his leadership. He was referring to a document his lawyers gave the court last month, in which they argued that he was not guilty of charges of bribery, breach of trust and fraud. And in Dhaka, and news from Bangladesh, the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination program in that country has opened to a warm response across the country, with more than 31,000 people getting vaccinated on the first day of the program on Sunday. Eminent personalities, ministers, judges and high-ranking officials took the vaccine on the first day to boost the public confidence in the vaccine program in Bangladesh. Till now, 4.10 lakh people have registered for the vaccine. Speaking in Dhaka on Sunday, the Health Minister Zaid Malik has said that it is the safest vaccine. He urged people not to pay heed to any rumors about the vaccine. Also, Bangladesh has signed an agreement with the Serum Institute of India for the purchase of 30 million doses of Covishield. Out of it, 5 million doses arrived in Bangladesh last month. India also gifted 2 million doses of the vaccine to Bangladesh. Congo's health ministry on Sunday said that a new case of the Ebola virus has been detected in the country near the city of Butembo, adding that a woman has been infected by the virus and has died. And the woman was married to a man who had contracted the virus in a previous outbreak. Well, the IDEX program of the Defense Innovation Organization is helping the armed forces to find made in India solutions to the modernization efforts of the armed forces. Well, not only is this leading to innovation, it's giving a fillip to the startup movement in our country. Nandita Daga reports.
When India talks about Startup India, there is no better place to start than the arms manufacturing industry. That's because India is the largest importer of arms in the world, and we badly need startups in the defense manufacturing industry, in the domestic defense industry. That is why in 2018, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the then Defense Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, they launched the IDEX program. That is the Innovation in Defense Excellence program.
What we do in the entire process is, we give them monetary support of half the product development budget or up to 1.5 CR for each project. If some startup want to create something, let's suppose for this BMP, he will never get an opportunity to see this BMP and mount their equipment on this BMP. We make these equipment available to them. help them integration on that, help them test their equipment in different DRDO and other labs, and then make the equipment functional. So it's not only the monetary help, but entire
also
help.
Logistical help
Yes,
to provide.
yes.
IDEX liaises with the armed forces and with these small homegrown innovative companies, and it provides them basically with problem statements which the startups, being optimistic, like to call challenges, and these challenges are then rewarded with the financial help and logistical help. Financial help of about 1.5 crore rupees to each startup which wins a challenge, and that is why this IDEX is proving to be a boon for India's startup industry in defense.
Tank crew has very limited vision around the tank, what is happening. So what we did, we created a solution that allows the tank crew to have a complete 360-degree visualization around the vehicle.
So you have mounted this upon a BMP-2 Sarath vehicle, and can you tell us about this IDEX, how you are associated with it?
When IDEX started, the IDEX purpose was to connect startups with the real world environment, with the real world end user, and understand the problems, what the problems they face, and also provide a platform for me to be able to provide the technology and demonstrate the technology. Besides that, which they also help the startups fund the program. So they also fund the program, the product development or the installation.
This electro-optical system mounted on a BMP-2 Sarath infantry combat vehicle, it provides a see-through armor to this vehicle. This is an example of a product or a technology that has been developed with the help of IDEX and startups and the army working in unison. With camera person AMG Surendra at Yalhanka near Bangalore, this is Nandita Dagar for DD News.
Well, chasing a 420-run target set by England for victory in the Chennai test, India scored 39 for the loss of 1 wicket at stumps on day 4. Well, England had struck early and India had lost Rohit Sharma. He failed to give India a solid start in this formidable chase. The responsibility will now be on Shubman Gill as well as Shubman Gill, I beg your pardon, and Cheteshwar Pujara as they keep India's hopes alive in this game. So India will be needing 381 more runs on the 5th day on a turning pitch to win this match. Well, England had set this target of 420 runs for India, and England were all out for 178 in their second innings thanks to R. Ashwin, who picked up 6 wickets, the pick of the bowlers, 6 for 61. Ashwin claimed the wicket of Rory Burns on the very first ball of the innings and didn't stop from there. And with that, we conclude News Night for tonight. Thanks very much for your company. Namaskar.